Hey everyone, and welcome back to another video. Thanks for tuning in. Just want to do a quick video today just talking about a little device that's used on these Sony broadcast cameras. It doesn't really get talked about very much. I have touched on it myself in the past in another video. I'll put a link in the description for that. And it's a camera control unit. If you've got a camera like this here, the Sony DXC M3 or M3A, and probably others as well, I'm not sure which other models are compatible with this. A camera control unit is something you'll be looking at to help give your camera some extra features and benefits and a bit more fine-tuning, as it were. As these cameras are here, you can just use them as they are with the composite video out, but obviously to get the best out of these cameras you want to be able to control things like the contrast and the white balance and stuff like that. And you can control the white balance on these cameras, but you've got a little bit more control in the colour settings for warmth and things using a camera control unit. And of course the best thing about using a camera control unit is getting the RGB signal out of these cameras that they're capable of. Although I have to confess I've never managed to actually separate that signal yet and get it into a computer to record that better resolution. These cameras don't have S-video unfortunately, it shows composite video or RGB. If anybody out there has successfully gotten the RGB signal out of one of these cameras into a computer, please let us know which device you used in the comments. So let's take a quick look over the CCU M3. And this is the lock button. Once this is switched on, you can't adjust any of the controls on the CCU. Intercom for the headset. Face selector and control, so you can sync the unit and the camera with external gen lock. Auto center, automatic centering switch indicator. For the automatic centering adjustment, you just point the camera at an appropriate object and press the switch down. The switch automatically returns to its original position when released. Bars or camera mode, so you can put colour bars up on the output, or you can see the camera's output. Gain selector switch, I always try and keep this at 0. Obviously if you're in a really low light condition, then you can obviously switch that to a higher to get a bit more sensitivity out of the camera, but you will get a bit more noise. And then you have your white balance adjustment here, black, white, gain and ped. You can adjust the red and blue pedestal levels, and with the gain you can adjust the red and blue gains separately. And last but not least, you have manual iris control or auto, and this will affect your depth of field. And then you have master pedestal, and this will be the adjustment of the black level, essentially setting the darkest point of the image. Let's take a look around the back. Quite a lot of sockets on this. Here you have the RGB video output, composite video out and monitor out, sync output, DC in, tally intercom, viewfinder for black and white viewfinder, and here you have your return video and gen lock video termination switches, and VBS VB selector. I use one of these as a monitor output and the other one to capture the video. And the large socket there is the 14-pin camera connector. And undoing this thumb screw here, and this is where the battery goes in. And interestingly, it uses exactly the same battery from the SL2000. This is a lead acid battery, so it's very heavy. So you could in fact modify this and using the same socket put a lithium ion battery in there. It would certainly be a lot lighter. And typically, Sony being Sony, the centre pin is negative instead of positive on this jack, so be careful if you do make a modification. The manual says up to 5 hours battery life using the lead acid battery, so it should last a lot longer with the lithium ion battery, depending on the amps of course. Oh, and not forgetting the nice carry handle there on the side. So I have 3 of these units, 2 are in really good condition, and one of them doesn't work, which is this one here. The one that's battered works perfectly, along with another. So I thought we'd have a quick look inside this thing, so you can see what's inside of it, just in case anybody's curious. So we'll do that next, have a quick look inside. Unfortunately I never got this one working. I think it was blowing a fuse if I remember rightly. But yeah, I never got around to it, so I must have a bad earth somewhere. Maybe I'll go back to it one day. But the reason I bought another 2 of these was because I was planning on doing a video in the future using 3 cameras. To try and mix it all using a mixing desk and go straight into a computer rather than tape, because my portable U-matic unfortunately is not working. So let's get this thing open and have a look inside. There's a top and bottom to this. Obviously I've never been in one of these before, I didn't look for any service manuals. Just 2 screws on each side to remove either the top or the bottom. One of the things I love about this broadcast stuff is how well it's made. And they're very serviceable as well. Things hinge up, boards hinge, so you can get to them. There you go, it's one of those glass fuses, you can see it has blown. Quite a busy device inside, a lot of ICs. Some of these had date codes on, 1985 and 1986. And that board there shielded with that can. That box on the left there is where the battery goes. Everything looked okay inside, I couldn't see anything wrong with it. And down at the front there you can see 2 other PCBs, one populated and the one at the front there with all the switches on. So the next thing I did, I went through my fuse stash, tried to find one the same, forget what the amperage was actually. Looking at the board, it was a 1 amp fuse, and when I turned it on you can see it move slightly. Didn't blow this time, but there was still no life. So at this point I just called it a day, because I already had 2 other devices that worked. So let's have a look at the other accessories available for this unit. You have the black and white DXF 40 viewfinder, 5-inch viewfinder. This actually fits on the camera itself with an attachment. It will plug directly to the back of the CCU. And to power all of this, you'll need a power supply. Here I have the CMA8, but also a CMA7. This uses a camera output connecting cable from the back of that, which changes to a 12 volt DC socket. DIN socket, 4-pin, that goes into the back of the CCU. If you have a Sony SL2000 portable Betamax from around 1980-81, the power supply for that will actually work with the CCU. The model number is a AC345C. I've had no problems with this powering the CCU along with the camera at the same time. I've managed to find the instruction manual for this, which is nice. Interestingly, it's dated 1983. I didn't realise this unit was as old as that. So I'm going to pop it up on the screen here. I left each page on for about 3 or 4 seconds, and you can just pause it and read what you want to read. It'll certainly be good for reference, because these things do tend to disappear as time goes on. And there you have it, the Sony CCU M3 camera control unit from 1983 that ran for quite a few years by the looks of things, judging by those ISCs on the inside. And centred there you have the DXC F40 viewfinder and CMA8 power supply. Well, I hope somebody out there found that interesting. I know I certainly did, going back over this again. It's amazing how much you forget. I wish I'd known half this stuff when I first got into all this broadcast gear. Well, I hope you enjoyed watching that with me. As always, thanks for watching, and until the next video, I'll be seeing you. And if you did enjoy watching this video, you may want to take a look at some of my other videos on similar themes. I'm always buying something on eBay, some more piece of technology, and trying to repair it. And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share. Thanks for watching.